Hello everyone and welcome to another video. So for today's video I'm going to be continuing my 60th anniversary series of TV story rankings with a ranking of every 10th Doctor TV story, from the Christmas invasion to the end of time. Also, I apologise for my last ranking not being as good as the others. I will be honest, I kind of rushed that one, even though I know I shouldn't have. I don't really know what I was thinking, to be honest with you. I hope this one will be a lot better for you all though. Anyway, without further ado, let's dive right into it. Right, so as ever, here's the tier list. Now, obviously, with the 10th Doctor having quite a lot of stories, actually, there will be some that, I will talk about more so than others. So some we might just, have to get through a bit quicker, because otherwise this video would be like 10 hours long or whatever. So, yeah. I apologise if that kind of annoys you a bit, but it's the best I can do. So the Christmas invasion I'm gonna put in great, and the reason why is because I think it is, well, it was the first Christmas special, really true Christmas special anyway, that Doctor Who ever did. The Feast of Stephen is kind of its own strange little thing. But yeah, Christmas Invasion got off the Christmas special tradition to a great start. It pretty much set the template that every Christmas special followed right up till 2017. And yeah, it is the Doctor Who Christmas special. It's Doctor Who does Christmas. You've got, killer Christmas trees and killer robot Santa Clauses and all that lot. And yeah, that's just so quintessentially Doctor Who, but also very quintessentially Christmas. So yeah, it's just brilliant from start to finish. The only real kind of bugbear I have with it is the fact that, this is the 10th Doctor's first story, but he basically doesn't really do anything. He just lies in bed in his pyjamas for like 90% of the episode, and then only for the last like 5-10 minutes does he actually finally wake up and save the day. But even then, even when it's just the final few minutes, David Tennant is just instantly the Doctor, from the word go. He really gets how to play the Doctor, and he's just a brilliant actor, quite frankly. None of this is going to be anything that is very controversial, I think. I think, regardless of whether you like the 10th Doctor or not, I think everyone agrees that David Tennant is such a superb actor. And yeah, he just shows it. He really just gets off to a great start. And yeah, that's about it for Christmas Invasion. So, unfortunately, we're then on to a real, well, stinker, I'm going to be honest, with New Earth. So yeah, it's the opposite of what I was saying about the Christmas Invasion. I just don't like it at all. I mean, I just feel like it just feels very tired. It just feels like the wrong way to open a new series of Doctor Who. And it feels very tired, and it's kind of in its body snatching tropes and everything, and yeah, it's just, yeah, I mean, I think the final few minutes where Cassandra is in Chip's body and kind of goes back in time and meets her younger self and everything, I think there's a kind of quite nice kind of emotional moment there, which I think makes watching the rest of the episode worth it ultimately. But yeah, New Earth is not something that, outside of a marathon like I've been doing this year for 60th, it's not an episode that I'm really going to be wanting to come back to, wanted to rewatch anytime soon. So yeah, bit of a shame with New Earth, but there you go. Then Tooth and Claw, I'm going to put this in great as well. Yeah, just a brilliantly atmospheric and sort of quite, I wouldn't say kind of dark, but also not dark, if that makes any sense. But because obviously there are like darker Doctor Who stories out there. But I just think that, you know, even though the werewolf is your standard 2000 CGI monster, you know, there's still, it's still realised really well, and like the switching from the CGI to, you know, kind of the real actor that's playing the werewolf in its human form, it works really well. Yeah, it's just brilliant, really, and the total opposite of New Earth in that it is a episode that I will rewatch quite a bit, and you know, I've always loved it and still love it, really. And then a school reunion. I'm gonna put this in. Yeah, I'll put it in great as well. There's quite a lot of greats at the minute, I know, but yeah, again, just another great episode of Doctor Who. Great to see Sarah Jane come back, and her and the 10th Doctor just have this wonderful chemistry. And you know, I think because David Tennant was such a fan of Sarah Jane himself when he was growing up and everything, he really gets, you know, how much of a big deal Sarah Jane was to the Doctor, and yeah, is just able to play that so convincingly and so wonderfully. And then it's great to have K9 back, obviously, and yeah, the Quillatane a really good monster. I would quite like to see them come back, actually, because I feel like there's, you know, something that could be explored there, maybe as like a big finish, classic Doctor's New Monsters sort of like story, or maybe they've already done one, I don't know, but where, you know, it details the Doctor's first meeting with them when, you know, they looked a lot different to the bat-like creatures that we get in School Reunion. Yeah, I think that'd be quite interesting. But yeah, School Reunion, just great to, just as I say, great to have Sarah Jane and K9 back. Great to see the 10th Doctor interacting with them. And there's a great kind of initial sort of rivalry between Rose and Sarah, but then they kind of, you know, they become friends, and yeah, it's just very good. Then we've got the girl in the fireplace. Now, the whole stuff with certain actors in this aside, I would say this is probably one of the best 10th Doctor episodes, because it's just, it shows the 10th Doctor at his very emotional sort of like best. The 10th Doctor is a very sort of, he came across as this kind of emotional loner sort of Doctor, which David Tennant played so beautifully, and yeah, this episode is no exception to that. And the Doctor's chemistry with Madame de Pompadour is just great, and the clockwork droids, again, another great monster, instantly very iconic, I feel, and yeah, just a brilliantly emotional, sad tale that is just performed brilliantly. And then we get onto Rise of the Cybermen / The Age of Steel. I'll say kind of meh. I mean, it's fine. I don't really have any big issues with it. There's nothing that immediately jumps out as like a major kind of issue that I have with it, but it just feels a bit like a sort of retelling or retreading of the Big Finish audio spare parts. And I know that, you know, that it wasn't necessarily like they remade spare parts, but that audio did play a bit of a part in the making of this two-parter, I think, because I think Mark Platt was even like thanked on screen in the credits for this. yeah, it's fine as a Cyberman origin story. Spare parts, I mean, you can't really get any better than spare parts, really. So, you know, the Rise of Cybermen / Age of Steel is fine. It's just, it's trying to get to that same level of spare parts that I just don't think it can really do, because I feel like the TV show could never... You could have made spare parts for TV, but I feel like the fact that it's an audio instead perhaps helps it a lot. And you just get this really chilling sort of feel to just how hopeless the Mondasian people are in it, and you know how you get this sense that they feel anyway like they haven't got much choice but to become the Cybermen. But yeah, it just, for me anyway, this two-parter just tries to be a bit like spare parts but just doesn't quite work. But having said that, I have no real massive bugbears with it, so yeah, it's by no means on the same level of bad as like New Earth was, but yeah, there's just not much really, there's not much originality to it, I think, ultimately, is what I'm trying to say. And then the Idiot's Lantern, now let me see if, oh, yep, there it is. Again, GOAT. I mean, it's again a very emotional episode for the 10th Doctor, and I think this is kind of it. As I say again, the 10th Doctor is just brilliant at these very emotional episodes. David Tennant just knows how to act his socks off with it, and you know, I'm not really a massive fan of the whole 10 Rose like romance and everything, and I feel like it's no offense to like David Tennant or Billy Piper as actors, but they do kind of feel, the Doctor and Rose, the 10th Doctor and Rose anyway, do feel a bit insufferable together. And but I suppose that's perhaps the point. Perhaps they, you know, end up getting a bit too cocky with each, and you know, like thinking that they're gonna stay together forever, and then yeah. But we'll get to that later on. But having said all that, I do feel like the moment where the 10th Doctor finds out that Rose has had, you know, her face sucked by the wire, and you can really tell in his face just how utterly just determined and how utterly furious he is. And that's something that I think David Tennant does so well, is the Doctor's rage. And yeah, the 10th Doctor again is very emotional, and so the episodes where he is perhaps at his most emotional tend to work for me personally anyway. Obviously some people won't like that, won't like how the 10th Doctor is, but yeah, that's a topic for another video. Although I will say that's the whole kind of ending of the Idiot's Lantern where is it Tommy runs off with his dad, who, bear in mind, has been like really abusive towards him and his mum and everything, and just a nasty person basically. It's a bit strange, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not too sure what Mark Gatiss was trying to get at there. Just feels a bit of a strange ending. But you know, yeah, I won't say anymore because we're not here to like discuss things like that. But yeah, it's just a bit strange. And then Impossible Planet, the Satan Pit, I think that is going to have to be in GOAT as well. Yeah, it's another very, I would say this is a dark sort of story in that, you know, the Beast is such a brilliant monster, and the fact that you don't actually see much of him, you really, it's mostly just Gabriel Wolf's voice, which, you know, he's still got that chilling sort of scariness to his voice, which he was able to do so well previously with Sutekh, and then again he does it so well with the Beast. And yeah, it's just a brilliantly atmospheric, chilling story, and yeah, it makes good use of, you know, it being 2 episodes and everything. It makes good use of that longer run time as well. Yeah. Then Love and Monsters. Gonna put this in. Yeah, we'll put it in great. Now, the theme of this episode is obviously it does have a reputation as not. Well, I think I don't know if it has so much reputation of being a stinker now, but at the time anyway, I feel like a lot of fans really didn't like this episode at all when it first came out. I don't really get that for the most part. There is one bit, there's the ending, which if you've seen, yeah, I don't think I need to say anything, but yeah, that's a bit strange, shall we say. But beyond that, I think it's great. I think it's great seeing, you know, just the perspective of a regular bystander, essentially, and, you know, just the regular bystander who just happens to stumble into the Doctor's life, and how the Doctor's life ends up kind of having a real negative and sad impact on poor old Elton's life. You know, he makes some friends, he ends up losing most of them. Yeah, but it's... You absorb a lot. Peter Kay is playing Peter Kay, I mean... Yeah, but it's fine, you know, it works pretty well, I would say. Yeah, I don't think it's as bad as people used to say anyway. I mean, as I say, I don't know if it has such a negative reception nowadays. I think people have kind of come round to it a lot more, but yeah. Then we get Fear Her. Honestly, just kind of meh as well. Again, nothing completely wrong with it necessarily, just... Again, it just feels a bit tired. It just feels like one of them episodes where it's just trying to fill slots in the series, and... Yeah, it's just a bit of a filler episode in some ways. I mean, it's kind of nice, you know, it's a nice concept in terms of, you know, a child's drawings coming to life and everything, and... You know, that's played quite well, especially with Chloe's dad, the drawing that she makes of him. That's quite, I wouldn't say scary, but, you know, it's got that kind of, like, edge to it. But, yeah, it's very meme-worthy with that council man with his council van and his council axe and everything. That's hilarious. But, yeah, there's just not much else to say for Fear Her, really. It's fine, but... nothing massively special or noteworthy at the end of the day. It's a real surprise that I think it was written by Matthew Graham, who would go on to write Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes, the 2 series that I really love. It's really surprising that he wrote Fear Her, but there you go, really. And then, lastly, for Series 2, we've got Army of Ghosts, Doomsday. Great. Again, I mean, yeah, it kind of surprised me actually how Series 2 is not one of my favourite New Who series, or indeed one of my favourite series of all time, but a lot of the episodes have ended up being in GOAT or great. Yeah, that's kind of surprised me a little, but yeah, I feel like, you know, again, I'm not a massive fan of Tennant and Rose, but I do feel like the Bad Wolf Bay scene at the end, it does, like, justify that romance a little bit to me, and, you know, it's a really sad and emotional moment for the Doctor and Rose, and David Tennant and Billie Piper just play it to absolute perfection, really, and, yeah, the stuff, like, leading up to that, the Daleks versus Cybermen, it's a bit of a shame how, you know, we don't have more Daleks against like proper Cybermen, well, what I would term proper Cybermen anyway, because obviously these are the cyber Cybermen from the parallel Earth and then you've just got the Daleks being represented by the Cult of Skaro, which is only like 4 Daleks, but there's some nice kind of like, I want to say almost sassiness between, like, especially with the Daleks, how they sort of talk to the Cybermen and how they really do regard them as like inferior beings and everything, and you know, like Dalek Sex says, I think it is, like, you are better at dying, and yeah, it's great to see them two iconic monsters together, and it really makes for a very epic, grandiose sort of series finale, and yeah, I feel like Rusty Davies for the most part was pretty good in getting that epic sort of feel to most of his series finales, and yeah, this one is no exception to that. So that's it for Series 2. Right, so on to Series 3 now. So start off with The Runaway Bride. I'm going to put this in good. Yeah, it's the start of one of the greatest Doctor companion pairings, for me anyway, of all time, and that is the 10th Doctor and Donna. So good, in fact, that they're kind of revisiting that for 60th this year, but with a bit of a twist, obviously. Yeah, just David Tennant and Catherine Tate, they're just one of them pairings that just firing on all cylinders right from the get-go, and yeah, you gotta love just how the kind of bickering but also bantering that the Doctor and Donna have, and yeah, I'm kind of glad that Donna didn't join the Doctor like for Series 3 and waited until Series 4, but you know, it wouldn't have been like so bad, but you know, I'm glad that we waited for that until Series 4, because you know, I really do like Martha. Yeah, I feel like the Rachnos is a great monster. Yeah, again, it's kind of, I would say it's a bit of a step down from the Christmas Invasion, but again, it's still got that traditional sort of quintessential Doctor Who Christmas feel to it, and yeah, it's a slight step down, but you know, there's still a lot to enjoy here, and yeah, the Doctor and Donna, you know, David Tennant, Catherine Tate, just one of the greatest pairings up of actors that I think we've ever had on the show, and yeah, this is just, The Runaway Bride is a very good case for that, in my opinion anyway. So there we go for The Runaway Bride. Then Smith and Jones, I'm going to put this in great, just a great introduction for Martha, really. You know, it is mostly just about introducing her as a new companion, but I do like the Jadoon, I like the whole hospital on the moon setting. I think that's very, again, quintessential Doctor Who, and yeah, it's just great, utterly great, even if the Plasmavore, I think it is a bit of a kind of memey sort of villain, in terms of, you know, like a little old lady going around like sucking people's blood with a little plastic straw. It's very yeah, funny, but in some ways, but yeah. Then we get on to the Shakespeare Code. I'm going to put this in good as well. Yes, I know there's the whole facts of who wrote this, there's a whole Harry Potter references in this, but you know, yeah, I try my best anyway to look beyond that and enjoy it for what it is. I feel like it, you know, the Doctor meeting William Shakespeare, that works really well, and yeah, it's just very good. Obviously, like, we've had the few mentions of Shakespeare in the classic series, but it's great to finally have the Doctor meet him in the actual TV show. Yeah, there's yeah, I think the Carrier Knight's a great villain as well. And again, it just ties in quite nicely with the whole kind of Shakespearean sort of plays, how some of them would have witches in. Like, I think, well, obviously Macbeth does, maybe a few others. I'm not that, I don't know Shakespeare that well. But, yeah, you know, it works. And, yeah, I enjoy it for what it is, despite all the stuff, the not so great stuff surrounding it, shall we say. And then Gridlock, I put this in, well, I'll put it in good. I've seen people kind of, some people anyway, don't like the fact that the macro come back and it's kind of just like, oh look, you know, the macro back, and it's kind of just one of them moments where the new series kind of just brings a classic series monster back and doesn't really try and do anything that interesting with them. And I get that, but I feel like it's fine to have the macro back, you know. There's no such thing as macro, obviously. Yeah, it's very good little episodes, and yeah, it's a bit strange how the 10th Doctor treats Martha throughout the course of Series 3, but this is just one example of it, where he lies to her and doesn't admit it until the end of this episode, in that he kind of lets on that the Time Lords are still around, when obviously, well, in his opinion anyway, at this point, obviously Moffat would kind of undo this later on with the Day of the Doctor, but to him at that point, they're all dead, they're all gone. Yeah, it's an issue I have with Series 3 as a whole. Even though I do love it, it's one of my favourite seasons, or series. Yeah, just the 10th Doctor, his mistreatment of Martha is just very... yeah, it's very strange. I think it, you know, it kind of works... it ends up being for the best, because Martha kind of just, you know... well, spoilers for, like, for the Series 3 finale, obviously. Which, yeah, we should probably talk about then. Yeah. But yeah, Gridlock, good, nothing too special, but yeah, it's fine. Then Daleks in Manhattan / Evolution of the Daleks, great, and yeah, I don't really see, well, I to me anyway, I think that, you know, it's pretty enjoyable story. Again, I think there was some pushback to it at the time. Maybe it was because of the whole human Dalek thing, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I feel like that just adds an extra interesting dimension to the Daleks and allows for some interesting kind of like stuff to be explored there. Maybe, you know, there's not quite enough time to kind of to explore that properly even in a two-parter, but yeah, it's fine. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just great. It's great to have, again, the Doctor Who kind of going back into history, not necessarily meeting any historical figures this time around, but it's more just about like the building of the Empire State Building in New York, and, you know, how, you know, in the Doctor Who universe anyway, part of that was because of the Daleks, and yeah, it's again a very traditional Doctor Who idea. Yeah, very good. Then we get the Lazarus experiment. I'm probably going to put it in awful. I mean, yeah, it's not terrible, but the fact is, it's just, it feels like a filler episode, and it probably was, to be honest, really. But it's fine. There's some nice, interesting themes explored with, like, between the Doctor and Lazarus, between, like, immortality and living forever. That's quite interesting, but again, as to whether it necessarily explores that as much as it could have done, maybe not. But yeah, it is what it is. 42, I'm going to say good. Again, nothing too special, but it's pretty much fine. It is really, I think, well, it's an interesting enough idea, I suppose, to kind of like have that ticking clock like going on throughout the course of the episode, as they're slowly hurtling towards the alien sun. Maybe that could have been explored a bit better, but yeah, it's fine. And then Corwin and the alien son, they make for great villain. Well, kind of villain anyway. They're kind of a bit more of the son anyway is a bit more of a sympathetic sort of villain, because it only got angry because and lashed out at the humans because they were taking some of its energy as fuel. And yeah, there's an interesting kind of element to that, and yeah. Then Human Nature / A Family of Blood. Yeah, I think this has to go in GOAT. There's an argument out there that David Tennant's portrayal of John Smith is basically that John Smith it's good, and I can see why Tennant I think he won an award for it or something. I can see why that would be the case, but some people argue that he's just very whiny and just very unlikable. I get that, but at the same time, I feel like it makes for a nice sort of like contrast to how the 10th Doctor normally is. The 10th Doctor is this, lonely sort of emotional hero, and then you've got John Smith basically being this man who hasn't got a spine and yeah, just wants to settle down for a nice quiet life with Joan Redfern, and yeah, he feels very normal, very human, and yeah, I think it works quite well anyway. If you disagree, that's fair enough. The Family of Bloods themselves, great villains. Yeah, I've not read the Human Nature book myself. I do mean to at some point. But I know there are quite a few changes between the TV version and the book, which I explored in a previous video a few months ago. But, I feel like that the fact that there are some changes between the two of them, or some differences, I should say, sorry, means that the TV version doesn't... It's not just a straight-up adaptation. It can stand on its own two legs a lot more. And, yeah, it's just great. I feel like all the cast on top form here. And you... Really, I wouldn't... I mean, obviously, like, I've rewatched these episodes countless times, so I know that the Doctor ends up, John Smith ends up turning back into Doctor, and with it being Doctor Who that's always going to happen. But there is a kind of element there for like maybe a minute or two where you think maybe he isn't, and it's just really sad. Like the life, he just wants to live a normal, quiet life with Joan, and they get quick little flashes of that, and it just feels really sad and emotional just how they can't ever have that. Again, it's like another case of an emotional 10th Doctor episode being one of his best, I would say. And yeah, then we come to Blink. I would say GOAT as well. Some people say it's a bit overrated these days. I get why. I feel like, the Weeping Angels did get a bit... well, they were used quite a bit in the Matt Smith era anyway, and so maybe because of that they kind of felt a bit like they'd lost their kind of really... They didn't work quite as well as a monster anymore, compared to how well they worked in Blink. But yeah, this again is just like Love and Monsters, really, just like a regular person, in this case Sally Sparrow, comes into the Doctor's life and how that affects her and affects the people around her and everything. And yeah, it just makes for a nice kind of change of pace to just see the life that the Doctor leads from the perspective of an outsider, I suppose, someone who, you know, is not a companion, not an ally or a friend of the Doctor's, just a normal, regular person. Yeah, I would say it's... People rave about Blink, and I think it's justified, mostly. I get the kind of overrated argument a little, but yeah, I would say, actually, no, I don't think it is overrated. It deserves the amount of praise it gets. And then Utopia / The Sound of Drums / Last of Time Lords, so 3-parter here. It's a shame I can't... Well, I mean, I could have ranked Utopia separately, but obviously it is basically a 3-parter. Utopia itself is great, but then... Yeah, I'll say meh, because then The Sound of Drums is pretty good as well, but then Last of Time Lords, like especially the ending, the Doctor becomes Jesus basically, and it's just silly. And you know how he becomes young again thanks to people's faith in him, people who've like never even met him, have only heard about him thanks to Martha. Yeah, it's a bit strange, but as I keep saying, it is what it is. And yeah. But I feel like Martha gets a good exit, just, you know, she finally just sticks up for herself and says to the Doctor, look, you know, I'm not having any of this anymore. I just... Not in a horrible way, like she's nice and polite about it and they leave on good terms. It's just, you know, he did mistreat her, and I feel like, you know, it's good that you know, he kind of... that she stands up for herself, and that then once he is made aware of it, he actually feels really bad about it, which I feel, you know, as much as people like say, oh, the 10th Doctor, you know, he's such a, you know, cocky, sort of unlikable Doctor, I think that's kind of the point in some ways. Like, he's supposed to be a bit too... The fact that he was so hung up on Rose, when basically there's someone better for him in form of Martha, in my opinion anyway. It's just... I understand why the 10th Doctor won't be everyone's favourite Doctor, but I think it is the point. It is what Russell T Davies was trying to do, was show how the Doctor can be, you know, can sometimes come across as a bit, you know, as mistreating people, and yeah, just his cockiness and how that comes back to bite him. Yeah, I probably haven't explained that very well, but hopefully you get what I mean. Yeah. Then Voyage of the Damned, lastly, the last episode for Series 3. I'm just gonna, how do I say it? Yeah, go. It's just probably... Yeah, I just love it from start to finish. I have put it higher than the Christmas Invasion, which is interesting. But yeah, I think I would agree with that, actually. Yeah, it's just brilliant. It's everything you want in a Doctor Who Christmas special. It's got emotional moments, it's got funny moments, it's got a real kind of dramatic weight to it, how, you know, the Doctor meets all these like guest characters and everything, how they keep basically being killed off, and the Doctor is finally like, right, no more of this. Yeah, again, it's just the Doctor getting a bit emotional. Just works for 10th Doctor, in my opinion. And Voyage of the Damned is another example of that. And yeah, Kylie Minogue as Astrid Peth, you know, that kind of casting would maybe have seen as a bit of like stunt casting in like the John Nathan Turner era, but she's really does act her socks off in this, and she's got a great rapport with David Tennant. I actually wouldn't have minded Astrid being the Doctor's companion as much as I love Donna. You know, it would have been quite interesting if she had been the companion. But even though she's just a one-off sort of companion, a guest companion, she's still just instantly very likeable, and yeah, just great. That's it for Series 3. Right, so on to Series 4 now. Now, I actually should have started Series 4 off with Voyage of the Damned, but I actually ended Series 3 with that instead. I think that's because the way I used to like class the Christmas specials used to be very different. I'd class the Christmas Invasion Series 1, for example, Runaway Bride for Series 2, Voyage of the Damned for Series 3, etc. Yeah, that's kind of changed now, but I think, yeah, so apologies for that, might have been a bit confusing. Also, I've realised how long this ranking already is, you know, where, I mean, we've only got the Series 4 and then the Series 4 specials, but yeah, so I'll try my best anyway to try and get through these a bit quicker, because I don't want this to end up being too long. I mean, some of you might be fine with it, but you know. Right, so we've got Partners in Crime, another GOAT for me. I just love it. It's just the Doctor and Donna reunited on top form, and yeah, it just I love the 10th Doctor and Donna, I really do. I love Series 4. Yeah, it's just great. It's just a great reintroduction for Donna. You know, it's great to see, you know, her interactions with the late Bernard Cribbins as Wilf. He's great as well, and the Adipose is again a sort of like tradition of a Doctor Who tradition of like kind of doing a sci-fi sort of take on something very on you know, a real life sort of factor, and you know, diet pills and everything, and they come alive and create the Adipose, and these cute little monsters, well, not monsters, but creatures of fat, basically. And yeah, it's just a brilliant traditional Doctor Who thing to do, and it just works. You know, there's nothing wrong with going with sometimes, you know, some of the same elements, if you can still make them work and still spin them a little bit slightly differently anyway. Yeah, Partners in Crime is just brilliant comedic fun from start to finish, and is an episode that I would rewatch, and honestly do rewatch to death. And yeah, maybe I might have put it a bit too high for some of you, but like some of you might not agree with me putting it at the very top. But I just really enjoy it. I can't really say much else. I love it to bits. It's a great little fun episode. Then The Fires of Pompeii. Well, yeah, probably GOAT again. I mean, it's for different reasons, because obviously, like, The Fires of Pompeii is not comedic in the slightest. It's much more of a dramatic, emotional sort of story. And yeah, you just get this real, again, it's like a ticking time bomb sort of story, where the Doctor and Donna and the audience know that Mount Vesuvius is going to explode, and Pompeii is going to, you know, all the people in Pompeii are going to die, but the people in Pompeii obviously don't know that. And yeah, the fact that that Donna ends up convincing the 10th Doctor to save Caecilius and his family at the end. Like, she just says, you know, don't save the whole town, just save someone. It's a great bit of acting from Catherine Tate there, you know, because, yeah, she's a comedian, so she obviously does the comedy side of things very well, but she also does the drama side of things incredibly well as well. And yeah, just her and David Tennant in that scene, and, you know, their decision to eventually save Caecilius's family and him, Caecilius and his family. Yeah, just great emotional stuff, really. And then Planet of the Ood, I'm going to put this in good. I would say it's trying to explore, like, the whole slavery aspect and of the Oods, and how, you know, they're used as slaves basically by the humans in the future, and how the 10th Doctor feels bad for kind of not really thinking too much about that last time for the Impossible Planet and Satan Pit. And yeah, I feel like there's more stuff they could have done with the slavery aspect, but as it is, for like a single 45-minute episode, I think it works pretty well. And yeah, the whole transformation scene where, I can't remember his name, but like this guy here, the real baddie, to be honest with you, becomes Ood Sigma. That is really gross, but yeah, it makes, I wouldn't say it makes sense, but you know what I mean. It's like, you know, the fact that he is so cruel to the Ood and ends up becoming one of them. Yeah. Then the Sontarn Stratagem / the Poison Sky. Meh, probably. It's fine, and, you know, I think it's maybe a bit overhated in some ways. Bit underrated perhaps, but it's just fine, you know. It's just reintroducing a classic monster. Do they really try and do anything that new or different with the Sontarans? Not massively, no. Do they necessarily need to? Well, no as well, really. Yeah, it's fine. It's nice to see Martha come back, and everything. The clone aspect is you know, kind of, is quite interesting, I suppose. Kind of been done to death in Doctor Who and sci-fi in general, but it still adds something. Yeah, it's fine. And then the Doctor's daughter, again, just meh. It's yeah, there's just not much to say. Georgia Moffat, or Georgia Tennant now, is great as Jenny, and, you know, she's got great chemistry with David Tennant. And I loved the whole bit at the end where the 10th Doctor does that whole the man who never would speech and everything, and I think that's a great moment for the 10th Doctor. But there's just not much else to say, really. And Martha, just, does she really do that much in the grand scheme of things? Not really. She's not really given that much to do. Just kind of loses poor old Half Peck. Yeah. But yeah, there we go. Then the Unicorn and the Wasp. Again, putting the writer stuff, the stuff to do with this certain writer, to one side, it's pretty good. It's trying to make itself feel like an Agatha Christie novel, but I've seen some people say, you know, having actually read the Agatha Christie novels, that it's nothing like them. Yeah, I can't really say myself because I haven't read them yet, but yeah, I feel like the Vespiform anyway is a great monster. It may have, like, scared me a bit as a kid, because I actually have a phobia of bees and wasps. So yeah, seeing a giant killer wasp on Doctor Who when I was about 8 years old, that was great. But yeah, I think it's good. Yes, it's not really trying to be. It's not an actual faithful sort of like. As I say, people take issue with the fact that it's trying to be like an Agatha Christie mystery, but it actually isn't. It's nothing like them. Whereas the Shakespeare Code, at least, I wouldn't say it felt massively Shakespearean, but there were some elements anyway. But yeah, it does. Maybe it does to some people anyway. I'm not sure if I would agree, because I can't really comment on the Christie novels yet, having not read them. But yeah, it's just, maybe some people would argue it kind of makes a mockery out of it in some ways. Yeah, as I say, that's not really anything I can comment on, but I get it, and that's fair enough. Then Silence in the Library / Forest of the Dead. Goat, I mean, how could I rank this any lower? It's just great. The Vashta Nerada, a brilliantly chilling, terrifying monster. I'm honestly surprised we haven't really. I know there was an adventure game. I think there's been a few Big Finish audios with them, but they haven't actually come back to the TV show, even like once. And you would have thought they would have come back at least once during the Stephen Moffat era, because he's the one that created them. But yeah, unlike the Weeping Angels, they haven't really come back that much. Come back to the actual TV show yet, unless, you know, maybe the second Rusty Davis era proves me wrong or something. Yeah, but I just think they're great, and just, again, it's a sort of real life thing that we take for granted, I suppose. It's just an ordinary real life thing in like Shadows, but it's something where, you know, it adds a Doctor Who twist to it, which again just works so well. And River Song is great in this. Alex Kingston, just utterly great, and just portraying this mysterious figure. Obviously, she won't, you know, nowadays she's not that mysterious because we know all about her backstory, but at the time she was a very mysterious figure from the Doctor's personal future, and she just plays that so well. And Moffat writes her really, really well, and yeah, her interactions with the 10th Doctor are great. Would have liked to have seen more of the two of them on screen together. I know, again, there's been a few Big Finish audios with them, but yeah, I just would have felt, because a lot of her stuff is with the 11th Doctor, not that I have a problem with that, but just to differentiate it a bit and just spread some of her adventures out with the Doctor a bit, you could have had a bit more with 10, maybe a bit more of 12 as well. But yeah, it's great, chilling, terrifying two-parter. And, you know, when it looks like Donna's died or something, that's great as well. Yeah, and how the Doctor saves River by putting her into the cow computer world. That's great stuff. Yeah, then we come to Midnight. Goat again. I mean, again, what can I say that hasn't already been said about this episode? It's utterly terrifying, but it's in a strange way, because you never actually see what the monster looks like. And I feel like that actually works quite well, because if you'd seen the monster, even for like a split second or so, I feel like that would have maybe spoilt it a bit. But yeah, it just works so well. It's very atmospheric, very intense sort of like stuff going on the Crusader tour, well, not bus, but like, yeah, vehicle. Yeah, all the cast on top form here. gives some really emotionally intense like performances, and it's just exactly how sort of normal people would react in that kind of setting, in that kind of situation. And yeah, that's what makes it even more scary, you know, that the fact that you can relate to some of the characters being as they are, you know, being utterly horrible to each other, especially the Doctor, being quite full of himself, and then people turn on him later on and thinking that he's the monster. Yeah, just brilliant kind of psychological, almost sort of horror episode. Then we get Turn Left, again another really dark like episode where, you know, it's sort of like a what if, you know, what if the Doctor died at the end of the events of The Runaway Bride, because, you know, he never met Donna wasn't there to save him. Maybe you could argue that it doesn't explore all of it quite as much as it could have done, but I feel like just a total, you just see how awful, you know, the Doctor Who world is without the Doctor, and just how it utterly breaks the culture of Britain and real life in the Whoniverse. Yeah, it's just brilliant, and Catherine Tate again just does such a great emotionally packed performance, and yeah, it's just great, utterly great, really dark. Then finally, The Stolen Earth / Journey's End. Again, GOAT. I mean, it's just these few episodes from Science and Library to Journey's End, just almost like peak Doctor Who in some ways, really. And yeah, just such an emotional series finale. And Donna's exit is so sad, you know, how she becomes the Dr. Donna, and then because of that, you know, it's slowly killing her, like having all that knowledge and stuff from the Doctor's mind, and how the Doctor has to wipe her memory of him. It's such a sad moment. And then when, you know, he's saying goodbye to her later on, and she doesn't even remember who he is anymore, so she's just like, oh yeah, see ya. And it's just such a really awful emotional moment for the Doctor, and you can tell it really gets to him, having to say goodbye to Donna, because they were that kind of the best of friends dynamic, really. Yeah, it's just great. It's great to have Davros back, and Julian Bleach plays him very well. It's great to have the Daleks back. Yeah, just utterly great. And some people might say it's kind of the first Russell T Davies era sort of. It's like it's really the finale for that, really, in terms of, you know, wrapping things up and everything. And some people may not like that, but I would say that, yeah, it's just, I really like it anyway. And yeah, so that is it for Series 4 proper anyway. So we're now on to the specials. Right, so I believe this is going to be the longest ranking I've done so far, so apologies for that. It turns out I've had quite a lot more to say about episodes than I was expecting. But yeah, we're nearly there, I promise. Just the Series 4 specials now. So the next Doctor, I'm going to put this in good. I've seen some people not liking it as much, and I get why. There are better Christmas specials out there, but it's still a lot of fun, ultimately. And, you know, as disappointing as it is that David Morrissey didn't actually become the next Doctor, because I felt like that would have been actually really interesting, having the Doctor stranded in Victorian London. And he just does such a great performance of it, and, you know, you can really believe up until, you know, it gets revealed that he isn't the Doctor. You can believe that he is going to be the next Doctor. Yeah, he's instantly so doctory, and it is a real shame that yeah, he wasn't the actual next Doctor. But yeah, there's just some great stuff going on between him and David Tennant. They've got a um, real great chemistry, and it's interesting to have the Cybermen in Victorian London. That's quite interesting, and at Christmas as well. Um, the Cyber King is a bit silly, but yeah, really cool as well. Kind of like that slightly steampunk sort of like feel to it, which is quite interesting. Miss Hartigan is a pretty good villain. Um, yeah, it's nothing special, but it is very entertaining and is a nice bit of fluff, I suppose, really. And sometimes that's all the Christmas specials need to be. Then we get to Planet of the Dead. Gonna put this in meh. Honestly, it's nothing too special, but it is fine enough. They've got no real major complaints with it. Kind of wouldn't have minded if Lady Christina had been the Doctor's companion in some ways. Might have been quite interesting, but I get why she didn't, because obviously, she steals things, and obviously that goes against the Doctor's kind of like morals and everything. But yeah, they've got a great chemistry with each other, and the Stingrays are kind of like quite fairly interesting sort of monster. But yeah, it's just fairly run-of-the-mill episode, really. There's nothing too noteworthy about it, but it doesn't necessarily need to be either. And then Waters of Mars, Goat, just brilliant. Probably my favourite David Tennant, my favourite 10th Doctor TV story, really. I just think it's great from start to finish, and just how the Doctor goes a step too far and becomes the Time Lord victorious, and believes that, he, now that the Time Lords are supposedly gone, he's the one who gets to decide what constitutes violating the laws of time and what doesn't, and just how that completely backfires for him, and Captain Adelaide Brooke eventually just makes him realise that he's gone too far by killing herself and everything. Yeah, it's just a very dramatic, very dark, very terrifying episode, and the floods are just utterly terrifying. Even now they just give me the creeps. Brilliantly realised monster, and yeah, it's just amazing. It's an amazing episode. It really is one of the best Doctor Who episodes of all time. What else can I say that hasn't already been said by everyone else, really? Then lastly, you can tell I'm trying to get these done as quickly as possible, but yeah, I'm still trying to say as much as possible. The End of Time, I put it in good. There were a few issues with it, I think the Master in it is a bit ludicrous in how he's written, and how he becomes I get why he's kind of written that way and acted in that way, but yeah, it's just a bit hammy, and it's just a bit strange. Just him going around, flicking between his normal self and this creepy sort of decayed Skeletor version, and then he goes around eating people and stuff, and it's just very strange. His whole plan of turning the whole human race into himself is very strange. But yeah, it's a good send off for the 10th Doctor. Ultimately, his regeneration scene always, I will just say it does always make me kind of tear up a bit, and yeah, it is, greatly emotional and well acted final scene. David Tennant really is acting his socks off with that, and it's very impactful, him going back to see or his companions and everything. Yeah, it's just great. Yeah, it's great to have the Time Lords come back, and Timothy Dalton does a great job as Rassilon. But yeah, there's still a few issues with it, and yeah, the Doctor is a bit still. Again, there's a few kind of like, it's how we know that he's going to end up saving Wolf because he's still the Doctor, but it's the fact that he gets all, as some people would say, whingy about it to begin with. Maybe can rub some people the wrong way, but I get what Russell T Davies was trying to do with the 10th Doctor, and trying to show him as someone who is very cocky, very full of himself, and how that can ultimately backfire for him. But again, that's something that we'll hopefully explore in the next video. So yeah, and then the regeneration itself, great, and Matt Smith makes a great first impression, and yeah, it's just that final few minutes, just brilliant. So that is finally it for my 10th Doctor TV story ranking. Anyway, so there was my ranking of every 10th Doctor TV story. But what did you think? Do you agree with my ranking or not? And would you have ranked anything any differently? Please let me know in the comments section below. Anyway, so thanks for watching, hope you liked it. Please don't forget to press that subscribe button below, as well as press the bell icon at the side of it, so that you'll stay notified of when all my new videos come out. This channel currently has 1,408 subscribers as of the time of writing and recording this video. But if we can get to 2,500 by the end of this year, then I will do another Q&A where you can ask me whatever questions you want. Just keep them polite, please. Also, please rate and comment below your thoughts on all of this. And please feel free to donate to my Ko-fi page, link in the description, or give me a YouTube super thanks below. And I shall see you all in another video. So, until next time, bye bye!